Hey, what's up guys? Chris07 here with a tutorial, and today's tutorial is a little bit on the advanced side, but you know, it is one of the most essential skills if you want to create a mod, and this is a skill that's totally necessary if you want to go beyond creating submods for LA Mod and actually make something from scratch, which is something that the community desperately needs right now. And if you are interested in doing a mod like that and starting from scratch and adding vehicles in from scratch instead of just copying and pasting pre-made files and stuff, this is the tutorial for you. So what I've done is I've already assumed that you have a model, and here I have several pieces of a model, and I have the main vehicle, and today we're going to be adding an ambulance. So there is the main body, and there are 4 doors which will be added later as children to that vehicle, and there's 2 wheels, and those will be added additionally with the doors as children to the main vehicle. And to go with these models are 3 different texture files. One texture file textures the main ambulance and all the doors, and then one wheel has one texture file, and then the other one has a different texture file since they are different styles. So at this point, before we dive right into the editor, there are some considerations when you export from ZModeler that you need to take, especially when it comes to doors. So let's jump into ZModeler really quick. So here in ZModeler, we have the vehicle that we will be importing into the editor and then into our game. As you can see, all the doors are missing, and that's okay because we will add them in the editor. And if I go ahead and hide that, you will see underneath is just a door. This is just one of the door models. This has to do with the driver's side door. So as you can see, the position of the door when you export it from ZModeler is very, very important. Right here, it is along the x-axis, and the y-axis is coming out towards you right now. And if I actually hover over that, you can see that green arrow is the y-axis. Now when we export it, it needs to be aligned along the edge of the y-axis. Otherwise, when you go into the editor to animate the door opening and closing, it will be all weird if your model is not aligned properly when you export it from ZModeler. So just to kind of give you an example here, if we imagine that this edge is the part of the door that's hinged to the vehicle, we want it to open out towards us, or even possibly out away from us, which is not realistic, but that's the kind of direction we want to go. We want to rotate around that green arrow right there, around what's called the y-axis. So if I actually lock the axes and only rotate around the y-axis right now, and I don't want you to show up, let's go back away. If I actually rotate this door, you will see that it rotates along the y-axis as if it's hinged along that white arrow. So you need to make sure that your model is properly aligned to the origin, just like this. Otherwise you're going to have some really weird results. For example, if this is actually too far away, let me move this out further. When you go into the editor, when it rotates along the y-axis, it's going to be really weird. That's not the rotation I want. Oh, it's because I just scaled it. Let's see. See how it does that? See, it's still rotating around that very center point, but now it's rotating very wide, and that is not what we want. We want this to be right. I keep forgetting to unlock my axes. I want it right along there. And now if we go ahead and lock to the y-axis again and rotate around it, and that's back to how we want it to open. So that is a very, very important consideration that you need to make when exporting all your doors. Okay, so now we're going to talk about wheels. Wheels are the exact same thing as doors. They need to be aligned perfectly along the origin of the 3D world in ZModeler. Notice how the z-axis, which is the one going up and down right now, is going right through the center, or close to the center of the side of the wheel there. That's what we want. And the most important one is the x-axis, making sure that is right through the exact center, or as close to the exact center of that model as you can get. Because when the vehicle is moving in game, it actually rotates the wheels along the x-axis. So let me lock the x-axis again, and let me rotate it. And that's how we want a wheel to rotate, just like that, right? And if our wheel is not perfectly aligned, like it is here, it's like off to the side and up a little bit, and we rotate around the x-axis, you're going to get some weirdness, right? You're going to get this little thing. That's not going to look right in game. Right? So you have to remember that wheels are just as sensitive, and they have to be exported in the proper position in ZModeler, which is right through the x-axis and even through the aligned through the z-axis. Although I don't think the z-axis and the y-axis are as important. Making sure that it's aligned through the x-axis for wheels is really the most important thing. Alright guys, so now that we're all done with that ZModeler nonsense and exporting, now let's actually get to adding things into the game. So I am here in the editor, of course ran as administrator if my game is installed in program files. That is 100% necessary, otherwise you're going to run into issues. And I'm going to go to modifications, and since we are doing this from scratch, we're going to go ahead and say create new modification. Alright, and we're going to call this mod awesome. Okay, and we're going to create, and that will create a mod folder for us. And if we go ahead and select mod awesome from the modification list now and hit yes, the game will freeze for a second and it will finish loading our mod just like that. Now under vehicles you can see there's a bunch of stuff in here, but hey, this is all base game stuff. The way the game works is unless there's something, an exact copy overwriting the base game, it's going to load all the base game stuff. So every mod is created, automatically loads the base game, and anything that you add into a mod is essentially added on top of the base game. So in this case, since our mod is brand new and doesn't contain anything, all it is just base game stuff, which is fine. So what we're going to do now is we're going to create a new group. So we're here under vehicle, since we're adding a vehicle, and here's our group list. We're going to create a new, and we're going to call our group 01 ambulance. And hit OK, and we just created a new group. Now inside this group we're going to create a new prototype. We're going to hit new there, making sure that our group is selected when we hit new. And we are going to find, let's see, we are going to place this in, it is already in 01 ambulance, that's why I was freaking out. And what I need to do is I need to put a slash there, and I need to name my prototype. So I'm going to call this NEMSA underscore ambulance 01, okay, .E4P. The .E4P part is incredibly important. You got to name it an E4P, otherwise it's not a prototype. So I just type that in, just like this, and all I did was add the slash and then the NEMSA ambulance 01.E4P, hit OK, and that will create me a prototype. And up here I can change the name that appears in the editor. This has no effect on how it appears in game, but just the name that appears in the editor. I'm going to call that NEMSA ambulance. If I can spell today, number 1. Okay. And now I don't have the model file added yet. Okay, so I'm going to have to go through and add that next. So I'm going to leave that blank. Everything else is good as it is. Hit OK. So if I hit that, it's just this weird box thing, right? Because there's no model file selected yet. So what we need to do now is actually go out of this and go to our folder. Okay guys, so I'm back here out on the desktop. I quit the editor and now I am in my mods folder. And you can see I now have a folder for mod awesome. And if I open that, and then if I actually open up the Los Angeles mod folder, you'll notice the difference. This one has like 4 files or 4 folders, and this one has like 1 million, right? Well, this is a brand new mod, so there's nothing in it yet. So you can see that a prototypes, vehicles, and that 01 ambulance group were created in folders already, and there's our prototype that we created in the editor. Perfect. Now what we need to do is add the models. So to do that, we got to do a little bit of manual creation of some folders. So what we need to do is we need to create a models folder. So we're going to do it capital MODELS. Has to be spelled exactly like that or it will not work. Well, okay, it will work, but it's against convention. It'll just make your life harder. Just name it just like that and makes your life a whole lot easier. And we're going to structure it for the sake of convention, making life easier, exactly like we do the prototypes. So inside of models, we're going to have a vehicles folder. And notice how I'm using the LA mod structure as a reference here. Alright, so inside of vehicles, now we have all of our groups in here. And we're going to name it the exact same that we named our prototype group. So I'm going to call it 01 ambulance. Just like that. And now when we place our model files in there, we will be ready to use them. So let's go ahead and open up our folder here. And here we have all of our v3o files and our textures. So let's go ahead and grab those, copy, and paste them into there. And perfect. That's all we need. So we're set up there. But while we're outside, let's actually take care of something right now. While we're in the file creating mood, there's a couple more files that we're going to need to create because we're going to need to use them later on down the line. So let's create a specs folder. We're going to need that when we actually put the vehicle in the game in the callout menu. We're going to need a units folder, and inside the units folder we're going to need a vehicles folder. Now I'm not exactly sure how finicky the units folder is about being exact. And judging by the fact that LA mod made it exact, I'm sure it probably is exact. So I would recommend naming these exactly as I am now. And there. And we're going to create an entry. Let's call this 100 NEMSA ambulance 01. Now I can use underscores. I probably can use spaces. It's not a big deal, but I'm just doing it like that. The reason we have a number in front is so that way we can actually easily order the items. So when I create a new one and I want to make it come before, well, I can change it to a lower number, 90, or if I want it to be after, I can change it to 200. And that just makes it easier to reorder the items since everything is done in alphabetical order when it comes to sorting in the game. So just kind of thinking ahead with that a little bit, but I don't have to put the 100 in front. Alright, anything else? Oh yes, we do need a lang folder, so we're going to create one of those, capital L-A-N-G, and inside that lang folder we're going to create an EN for English, and that is that. And that looks like all we need to manually create. So we have our models, our prototypes already in there. Cool. Alright guys, so now we're going to jump right back into the editor and keep working. Alright guys, so I'm back here in the editor, and what we're going to do now is we're going to reload our mod. Mod awesome, yes. And now what we're going to do is we're going to attach our ambulance prototype. And we are going to add it to our prototype here. Let's attach the model. Okay, so I went to, going too fast for you guys. So as you see here, it's in the mod directory. This is the mod folder. Okay, it's in the models folder. And now we want to select the vehicles folder. And in the vehicles folder, we want to select 01 ambulance. Now, if you remember our folders, all this stuff wasn't in there. It's like, where did all this come from? Well, this is all base game stuff. And again, when you create a mod, essentially you're just adding stuff on top of the base game. So all the base game stuff is always available to your mod and without any extra work. So if there's stuff in there that you want to use, well, good, it's there for you. But on top here is my 01 ambulance. That's the group I created. Now I want to select the main body of the ambulance, which is this one right here. This is my model. And I'm going to hit OK. So that attaches that. Everything looks good. And this is a car, right? We don't want to go off-roading or anything, so we'll do that. Hit OK. Boom. And now if I click on that, click out of that and then click on it. Something is going weird. Ah, there we go. You have to click something else and pull it up, otherwise it keeps it on there. Really weird. Let me unlock my map cam bounds right here at the very bottom. That will allow me to zoom in a little closer. And as you can see, there's the body. Perfect. Rotates perfectly because my model was exported right dead center of all the axes, so now it rotates perfectly as it should, and we are good. And just so you know how to rotate, you do hold down the right click button on your mouse and you just move your mouse around and that will allow it to rotate around. And then selection is obviously just the left click. Alright, so cool, we got that in. Would be nice to have some doors though, wouldn't it? Or maybe some tires too. So let's go ahead and do that. So the thing we need to do now is we need to create a new prototype. So let's go ahead and do that. Now these prototypes, this is where it gets really particular. Okay, so what we're going to do is, per convention, we're going to name it the exact same as our model. That's not the particular part, so technically you can name it whatever you want to call it. So I'm going to call it NEMSA Ambulance 01. Okay, this is where it gets particular. Okay, for the game to recognize it as a wheel, it needs to have at the very end underscore wheel, lowercase everything, 01. Okay, totally necessary, right? And then .e4p. Okay, so remember, you can name it whatever, and at the very end, it's got to be underscore wheel 01.e4p. Okay, so hit that. Okay, and now it's going to ask me to find my model for that. So I'm going to, under Vehicles, 01 Ambulance, and where's my wheel 1? There is my wheel 1. Notice how my prototype is named the exact same as my model file. Not required, but per convention, it is the best thing to do. Okay, good. Good. Okay, so that should give us a wheel. See? Perfect. Now it's halfway into the floor. That is totally fine. That is not a problem, so don't freak out about that. Okay, so we're going to do the exact same thing to the other wheel, right? So we're going to go into there, and we're going to create a new one. Now to speed things up, I'm actually going to select the old one, and as you can see, it will pre-populate this field down here. And all I'm going to do is change the 1 to a 2, hit OK. Now I'm going to hit the Browse. And with that, I'm going to go to Vehicle, 01 Ambulance, and get to Wheel 2 V30. Okay, that's my second wheel model. Hit that, hit OK, boom. So now select that, and there is my second wheel. If I hold down the Alt key and move my mouse up and down, that also causes it to raise and lower. That's another little trick. So perfect, that's how we want it to do. Alright, now let's add the doors. So same thing. New prototype. Okay, now this one's named a little differently, right? Again, this has to be exact, otherwise it will not recognize it as a door. And so it's NEMSA underscore ambulance 01 underscore door, all lowercase, 01. Okay, and we're going to again link our model for the door. There's our door, door 1. Notice how the model and the prototype again are named the exact same. And again, we're going to do the same thing. New, and I will select the old one, the previous one, and use that to speed things up. Okay, select my model. As you can see, this is not a terribly difficult process, but it is totally time consuming. So create a new one, and let's see, there's 2. I have up to 4 doors, so I need a third. Not 4, jumping ahead here. Door 3, Vehicles, 01 Ambulance, door 3. Okay, and finally the last one, new. Let's grab that one, and this is our 4th door. 4. Oops, that is not what we wanted to do. I was changing the wrong one. Yeah, when you get a lot of these, you got to be careful what you're doing, otherwise you're gonna not do the right thing and it's gonna cause an error, and you're gonna pull your hair out for an hour wondering why things are all messed up. Okay, door 4, good, Okay, perfect. So if I pull that out, boom, there's door 1. Pull this one out, there's door 2, right? And again, I can rotate around. Okay, perfect. And then there's door 3. Rotate that bad boy around. Okay, and then there's door 4. Perfect. All right, now here's the fun part. What I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to go to Modifications and Mod Awesome. Essentially, I'm reloading the modification. And when I do that, those wheels and doors should disappear from the vehicles list. Okay, so let's try this out. Yes, and it's going to reload the modification. Perfect. Well, where did our scene go? Well, you can actually bring it up, go to Edit, Scene, or you can just hit the F1 key. That works too. And if we go to Vehicles, 01 Ambulance, they're all gone. All right, don't freak out. They're here. But because we named them in that particular way, they've actually been recognized as vehicle parts. So if I go to Vehicle Doors, along with these million base game doors, we should have ours. So look for N because it's an alphabetical. Oh, there they are. NEMSA doors, right there, 1 through 4, perfect. And if we go to Vehicle Parts Wheels, and we go all the way down to the ends, we should find them. There they are. There are our wheels. Perfect. We're set with that. Now what we can do is go ahead and add those children to this model. So we're going to select our vehicle prototype here. We're going to hit Edit, and we're going to go to Edit Children. Okay. So first tab here is Edit Wheels. So what I'm going to do is I'm first going to find my first wheel. So scroll down to the ends because everything is in alphabetical order. Okay. This is wheel 1. I want wheel 1 to be in the front 2 wheel wells. So the front driver side and the front passenger side. So I'm going to go ahead and add that. Okay. So I'm using my middle mouse button. So if I use my middle mouse wheel to scroll in and out, that's how I zoom in and out. And if I hold down my middle mouse button, that's how I'm able to move around like this. You hold it down, move your mouse around, and you're able to control the camera. Arrow keys allow you to pan in and out for up and down and left to right. Okay. If you don't have an arrow key and you're trying to do this on a laptop trackpad or something, all I can say is good luck. You kind of have to use the mouse for this. Okay. So this tire is highlighted in red, and as you can see, it's facing away from us. Let me rotate around. Okay, that's the way I want it to go. So this one, I'm going to, since it's selected, I'm going to right click and move it around. This is kind of the hard part. You kind of have to finesse it in there. Camera controls are not the best, but you just kind of got to make do. Some helpful ones are snap to object. If you select that, it will actually snap to nearby objects. And again, it's really kind of tricky to get it out. You have to figure out which direction to move it in. And I highly recommend getting on a plane, so like directly underneath it straight is a good position to be in, and that's what I'm doing here. I'm going to take the snap to objects off so I can fine tune it. And the snap to objects is really helpful for getting it in the general area, and then turn it off and fine tune it a little bit. Okay, so that looks to be aligned where I want it in that way. Oops, I don't want to do that. I just moved it. Turn that off. Turn that off. Perfect. So if I use my middle mouse button, okay, that looks to be pretty much right on. Okay, but what I want to do is actually move it up a little bit. So I'm going to right click on that, and that's moving it in. See, this is where it gets kind of tricky. You kind of have to use the camera to make it happen. So just like that. So just perfect. And again, if I hold the Alt key, that allows me to go up and down like this. All right, so that's the Alt key. So I'm holding down Alt and moving it up and down. Okay, let me go back underneath it, and let me move this up just a little bit. And, you know, for a tutorial, that's good enough. Okay, I'm not going to sit here all day while I be all neat freak about this. Okay, so little tip, if I have this selected and I hit copy wheel, it will create an exact copy as soon as I hit paste wheel. Boom. So now there is a second copy there, and if I move this over, you can see I have that second copy and the original is still there. And now this second one is highlighted. And what I need to do is I need to rotate it. So I'm going to hold down my right mouse button and I can rotate it that way. And this is really helpful when you have snap angles on. So I'm going to go ahead and check that. And that will do it in increments of like 45 degrees. So it's going to be perfectly rotated. Okay. And now let me get situated here. Okay. And let me move this into position. That looks about right. Hey, that's good enough, right? And because I cloned it, I actually don't have to move it up or down. It stayed in the up-down direction. It stayed exactly where the other one was. So that kind of helps you out with keeping things even and aligned. Okay, perfect. That works for me. All right, front wheels are done. Let's do the back wheels. So I'm going to grab my NEMSA wheel 2. I'm going to add that bad boy, and there it is. All right, so let's do this one. This one's going to be in the back. So going to my underneath angle here. Let me use my arrow keys to move around like that. Okay. And holding down my left mouse button and putting that where I want it to be, just out just a little bit. Okay. Maybe a little more over. Okay, holding down my middle mouse button to move the camera. Okay, good enough. So holding down the Alt key, I'm going to left click and drag up. And that's fairly good. Let me just tweak it just a little bit. Sorry to get all perfect on you guys. Perfect, I like that. All right, cool. So now we're going to copy that. We're going to paste it. And let's bring it over here. Okay, hit snap angles, right mouse click, and rotate it around. Did that rotate? Yes. Okay, perfect. So let's move this up and through. Ooh, that's pretty close. Let's move it out just a little more. All right. Nope, too much. A little too much. And of course, by doing that, I just messed up the alignment. Cool. That works for me. All right, that's wheels. Next one, doors. Hit this Edit Door tab. And you know what? Honestly, it's pretty much the same thing. Although I think doors are a little easier because the snap to objects works really well for this. So here's my door 1. This is going to be my driver's side door. And I'm going to go ahead and add that in. And it spawned in the middle again. Okay, I'm going to bring up, holding that Alt key and then dragging up. And let me pull it out a little bit. And let's put on snap to angles. Or sorry, snap to objects. See how it's kind of snapping into where we want it to go? Ooh, just like that. How's that? See, this is why snap to objects is great for doors. See, that's almost right on. Now, you could probably get away with this in game because it's such a minor detail. So I'm going to turn my snap to objects off. And I'm actually going to use my Alt key, kind of get it to align. How's my above? Let me just move it in a little bit. I just don't want those lines in. I can actually use my skin here to help guide me a little bit. And that looks to be even. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. I think that'll do the job nicely. Okay, so now let's add another door. Okay, which door is this one? This is a rear door, so let's bring this up, holding my Alt key. Okay. Now this is getting really repetitive, guys, so I will do this door, and then I will actually cut ahead and finish this. Let's see. Okay. See, these ones are a little harder to know if you're right on or not, just because you really need the other door on there to tell. So let's add the second one on. And that's what happens when this thing gets weird. And as a warning, this is just absolutely awful with the camera controls, but it is a necessary evil if you want to make awesome content. Oh, I'm stupid. I'm sorry. That is not the back door. That is actually a side door. So please excuse my my dumbness, and I'll actually just go ahead and add the back doors because those are probably the more challenging ones. So let's do this real quick. This has turned into a 10-hour tutorial, sorry, but that is mod making. It is not for the short of time people. Okay, you know, for now that's fine. We will adjust it once we add the second one. So let's add our second door. And come on. There we go. And let's bring this up with our Alt key and alright, not quite. So let's turn off snap to objects and then let's play around with the alignment here. Again, I'm using my texture. A well-designed texture will really help this process out. Is my D aligned? Ooh, it's a little spaced, a little funky. So let's bring it out just a little bit. You can see that little lip there. So this one needs to be brought out more. Let's do that, shall we? Or no, that one's fine. This one needs to be brought. Yep, this one's sticking out too much. So let's bring that in. How's that? Ooh, still out too far. You know what? I think that's decent enough. Again, you're always viewing a vehicle from about this far at the closest, so I think for now this is fine. I can spend all day sitting there trying to make it perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and add this last door. I'm going to cut this out. This has already been way longer than it needs to be. So I will rejoin you after I add this side door right here. Okay guys, so I've actually went ahead and added this door here, and the door only took me about 15 seconds to add. This is probably the easier one. But now that we have all our doors added, we can go ahead and start setting the rotation for the doors. So let's start with our driver's side door, our door 1. And now remember, this door needs to open outwards. So let me get into an angle here so I can show what I mean. It needs to open out this way, in this direction. Okay, so if the y-axis is right here, right, that's kind of like where the hinge is for the door, we want it to rotate around that axis in the, let's see, this is going to be the clockwise direction. Okay, so we want it to open clockwise around the y-axis. And the way the game has it set up is that angles, the amount that the door is actually going to open, in the negative direction travel clockwise. So if I enter a -60, that's going to open the door in the clockwise direction about 60 degrees. And if I did +60, it would actually open it counterclockwise 60 degrees, and that would be like over here. And I don't know why they went with clockwise, negative, counterclockwise, positive. That's kind of counterintuitive to me, but hey, I didn't make the game, I just follow the rules. So that's what it is. So we want it to open 60 degrees counterclockwise, or 60 degrees clockwise, so that's negative, and 60 degrees because if we opened it at 90, the door would be like out to here, like the door would be right here, and that's kind of unrealistic. So 60 is about like right there, and it just looks good in game. So we're going to do that, and we want to make sure that we're rotating around the y-axis. Otherwise, it would open like a hatch. It would look weird. So we're going to set rotation on the y-axis, -60 degrees, so we open 60 degrees clockwise. Our door type is revolving. Okay, it is a revolving door. It is not a sliding door. If I wanted like a door that slid up or slid to the right, we would use sliding, but in this case we're going revolving. Door action. Now this door will be opened whenever a squad person enters the vehicle, so we want to select that to person. If we went equipment, then that would mean the door would open when we want to retrieve equipment from the vehicle. And then special would actually be for specialized functions. So for now, we're going to go for person, and we don't have an open sound, we don't have a closed sound, and group 0 is just fine. We don't need a name. We would use that if we were doing scripts, but we're not in this case. So let's go to our second door, which is our rear door here. Okay, and we want this one to open which way? Let's take a look here. We want this one to swing out this way, so this too is going to open clockwise. Okay, so we want the axis to Y, and we want the angle to be, in this case, since it's clockwise, it's negative, and about 120 or 125 degrees will open it, because this was kind of determined experimentally in my past experiences. I believe that if the door was in this direction facing just like the driver door here, then that would be 0, and we have to add 90 and 30. That was kind of experimentally determined, so about negative 125 is right on there. And for the rest of it, we want it to be revolving. In this case, because this is for when you only want to open these doors when they load someone into the back, we're actually going to make this a special door, and we're going to make this a group of 1, and you will see why in a second. Let's go to our second rear door here, and this door, again, y-axis, and since this case it's going to be opening in the other direction, it's going to be opening in the counterclockwise direction. We actually only want it to open in a positive 125 degree angle. Okay, so since it's just the opposite of the other one that didn't save. Let's try that, negative 125, and then make sure you hit enter, otherwise it will not save, like I did not do the last time, and that's why it got deleted. Okay, so there, we want the door action to be special, and we want the group to be 1. Now, why are we setting these two to be group 1? Well, whenever one door opens, it means that all doors in that group will open. So group 1, if I open this door through a special action, then the other one will also open because it is in the same group. So that is how you get 2 doors to open up at the exact same time. You add them to the same numbered group. Okay, so now let's go to this side door. Okay, and we are going to again rotate the y-axis, and this one is actually going to open the exact opposite of the driver's side door. That went clockwise 60 degrees. I want this one to be about 75 degrees. Again, it's opening counterclockwise, right? We're actually going to want to open this way, which is counterclockwise, and that's going to be 75 degrees. And that again was experimentally determined. 75 degrees just looked better in comparison to 60 or whatever for the side door. So that's what we went with. And revolving. This one's actually going to be an equipment door. So if I have my paramedic go and grab, say, an EMT bag, he will go to the side door and he will open just that door. And that door will only open when that happens. So we're setting that to equipment, and we don't need to set its own group because it is an equipment door and it is the only equipment door, so we can just go ahead and leave the group number at 0. Okay, I think that pretty much sets it up. Cool. And if we wanted to, we could also add in some other things. Let's see. Wheels. We don't want to add superstructures because that's for things like ladders and hose cannons and stuff. We don't want to do that. But if we go down to your edit childs, this is where you kind of add the other weird stuff. So I mean, if you wanted to, let's see, what sort of nonsense can we add? We can add a, if you had like antennas or extra light bars and stuff, this is where you could add them. So let's, I'm just picking out, a bush, like if I wanted to, have a tree growing on top of this thing and it be attached to it permanently, this is where I would do it. I would add that child object on there. But mostly you would use this if you wanted to add like extra lights on here, or antennae or anything like that, this is where you would do it, and you would just add it and you would move it around in the exact same manner as you did the doors and tires. And that's pretty much adding additional children. And that's pretty much that. We hit OK to make sure everything's saved. And if we actually pull it out now, we should see, let's see here, let's reload, let's grab that, and we see all of our doors are all on, and so are our tires. Alright, well guys, that pretty much concludes part 1 of this tutorial. And in part 2, what we're actually going to do is we're going to take this model and actually throw it into game now. Just because we threw in the editor does not mean it will actually show up in game. So what we're going to have to do is we have to go in, edit some XML files, and get the game to throw it into the callout menu. And that way we can actually call it out and use it in game. So thank you guys for watching. Leave a comment, like, subscribe for more tutorials. If there's plenty more coming, please do leave a comment and let me know what you thought. Was it too long? Was it too boring? Was it good? Was it not good? Please do leave some constructive criticism, and I am always looking forward to improving these tutorials. And once again, thank you guys for watching, and I hope this was helpful.